Hello again to everybody who watches me. Well, we are in the month of August, and I didn't know exactly what review to start off the official last month of summer. So I thought I'd go with a movie that is pretty hot as far as its setting is concerned. And I also thought I would do a follow-up review to my final October review last year. Today I'm going to talk about Rob Zombie's The Devil's Rejects. Man, Rob Zombie, he's had quite a career. Started out as a huge heavy metal star in the 90s, made some awesome songs, and then he became a film director after directing several of his own music videos, and people are very mixed on him. Some people like him, some people hate him, some people think he's kind of half and half as far as quality is concerned. Like, I was at a movie store last October, I think, somewhere around that time, and I was in the horror section, and these guys, this dad and his son, were browsing for horror movies, and the dad came off as one of those adults who has a bit of a speech impediment to the point where you think they either have done drugs or they're a little retarded. But this guy just kept saying to his son, "Rob Zombie's movies are horrible, they suck." And last year I talked about House of a Thousand Corpses, and I really got myself all up. I put myself in the clown-styled makeup of that movie's main character, Captain Spaulding, and that was cool to do. That was a lot of fun. Getting it off was a bitch, but it was a lot of fun, and the advantage of having all that makeup on, no one could see just how drunk I really was, how red-faced I was during that review. I love doing that review, and well, it's not my most complex review. It's a good one to go back and watch, and by the end I am just completely buzzed. And even today I haven't learned my lesson to not do that. And by this point I should know better, but the Irish person in me just can't stop. And the Asian side pays for it. House of a Thousand Corpses, I love that movie, and I know it's got a couple of flaws. It's not very well edited, and it definitely has the feel of a first-time director, but it is just an amazing love letter to the month of October and Halloween. And it's definitely one that I try to get to every October, just to get into the season. The Devil's Rejects, it is a sequel to House of a Thousand Corpses, but it's a very different movie. It's not Halloween themed, doesn't take place around Halloween at all, so that's why I'm doing it in the summer. And it has a few continuity issues, like the setting of the Firefly family's house, and some of the characters from the first film do not appear or even mentioned. But it's nothing to obsess over. It's not as confusing as the continuity of the Evil Dead movies. And like House of a Thousand Corpses, it's a great film. Even better, I'd say. It's just an incredible crime horror film, a great suspenseful thriller, and many critics have pointed this out. You don't have to have seen the House of a Thousand Corpses movie to understand The Devil's Rejects or its main characters. In fact, the film opens in a way where you have a narrator giving a little backstory. So yeah, you really could just walk into this movie Although I would see House of a Thousand Corpses if I were you, just so you get a little bit of familiarity with the main characters. But just understand, The Devil's Rejects is a lot different than House of a Thousand Corpses. House of a Thousand Corpses was edited almost like a music video and had a lot of interesting styles put into it. And it's a little rocky. The Devil's Rejects is a lot more sturdy in its storytelling. It has a much more even flow to it. And the movie plays out almost like a Tarantino film. When I watched this, it was hard to believe the first time that this is the same person that made House of a Thousand Corpses. Like, it almost has the feel of, say, Tarantino or Michael Mann with the way this movie plays out and the direction it has. And it's very impressive. Like, Rob Zombie really upped his game here. And while his writing can get a little repetitive in certain scenes, it's not too bad, and for the most part, the film does, as I said, flow very evenly. And these main characters, who in the first film were just sadistic, scary, not too complex, get a lot of very interesting character development. It's very cool to watch, and because the main characters from the first film, the Firefly family, they are just as, and at times even more, evil, cruel, and inhumane than they were in House of a Thousand Corpses. Here, we also get to see, oddly enough, some traces of humanity in the killers. It's like a lot of people say, like, even the most evil people have a little bit of humanity in them. It does not at all redeem them for the awful things they do, but it lets you know that there is a little bit of humanity there. And I've rambled on enough. Let's get into the plot. The Devil's Rejects stars Sid Haig as Captain Spaulding, Bill Moseley as Otis Driftwood, and Sherry Moon Zombie as Baby Firefly. The Firefly family, for anyone who hasn't seen House of a Thousand Corpses, are a family of sadists who abduct, torture, kill, and rape, at this point, a countless number of victims, just because they can, for the hell of it. They enjoy it, and after all the shit that they did in the first film and way before the events of the first film, the authorities have finally caught up with them. And a sadistic, a sadistic sheriff, played by the very underrated William Forsythe, leads a group of police and SWAT members to ambush the Firefly family's home. And everybody is either killed or captured, except for Otis and Baby, who escaped through a underground pipeline. And the opening scene where the house is ambushed is a great action sequence, and it's cool to see like the Firefly family using what they have with them to fight back and protect themselves. Like, they have guns, but they don't have proper shielding, so they just wear like giant garbage type cans or oven stove plates as shields. After the ambush, Otis and Baby kill a nurse driving home from the hospital, take her car, and ride off. And the police search the basements where they have memoirs of their killings as well as victims locked in cages. And while the film tries to be its own thing, like, it still has a few connections to House of a Thousand Corpses. Like, there were a bunch of victims in that film who were cheerleaders that were abducted, and we see as they're escaping that the cheerleaders are locked in cages, just screaming for help as the film's opening credits plays, and I just think it's cool to have those little callbacks, and like newcomers will just be like, holy shit, but people who have seen the first one will be like, huh. And the opening credits sequence after the ambush is pretty awesome. Rob Zombie, next to being a very talented musician himself, got an amazing soundtrack of songs from the 1970s. And the song that plays over the opening credits sequence, as all these horrific things and action chaos stuff is happening, is Midnight Rider by the Allman Brothers. Great song, and it plays very well, and also further adds to that almost Tarantino feel that's going on. And as the police are searching the basement, they discover a book with photos of them and their victims, and one of the people in those photos is Captain Spaulding, the clown from the first movie, who, in the first film, almost did not have a connection to the Firefly family. And then here we find out exactly what his connection is, because he had almost no scenes with the family in the first film. After the police ambush, Baby calls him, and she calls him Daddy, showing that he's her father. So the remaining Fireflies and Captain Spaulding hit the road, and the movie just becomes one long psychotic road trip, all the while William Forsythe's sheriff character, whose brother was one of the cops killed in the first film, is hunting them down, determined to deliver his own idea of justice. And William Forsythe gives a just terrifying performance here as this character who's supposed to hunt down the sadistic family, and he becomes almost as awful as them, believing in his own mind his actions are justified, that he's getting justice for victims, and that it's time to, as he put it, go over the line. And he also keeps spouting throughout the film, let's do what God made us to do. God help, or let's do what the good Lord intended. So it's not delved into too much. We get the feeling he maybe in his mind he thinks he's doing God's work. One of those type of people. And his head's so far up his ass he can't even see just what a monster he's becoming. And the Firefly family on their demented trip ambush a family of like country singers, keep them hostage, torture and sexually humiliate them, and make them help them get out. And the most disturbing scene in the whole movie, in The Devil's Rejects for me, is the scene where Baby is doing a shitty little sexy dance, trying to get the older husband in this group aroused. The people they ambush at this motel are Roy and Gloria Sullivan, played by the late Jeffrey Lewis, and Priscilla Barnes, and their friends Adam Banjo and Wendy Banjo, played by Lou Temple and Kate Norby. And they also have a roadie named Jimmy, played by a guy who could be a familiar face for some people, Brian Posehn, P.O.S.E.H.N. And these characters, for the most part, they don't seem all that like the type of people that you'd want to be friends with, but they seem okay enough. Like, they don't seem that bad. And the most disturbing scene is where Otis says to Roy while he's not getting aroused by Baby's dance, saying, "You a faggot," and the guy's like, "I'm a married man." And then Otis goes, "Well, let's see what you got. Let's see what's so good." And pointing his gun, he forces the character Gloria to strip down to her bra and panties, and just... Priscilla Barnes gives a almost heartbreaking performance for this one scene. She's not a big character, but she really put her all into this, and you really feel the pain and humiliation of this character. And you see these normal people just break down, and in their brief roles, it shows just how the effect that the Fireflies have and on them, and just how evil they are and what they put this innocent family through, because they were just people staying at a hotel and they just picked them out of the blue. Kind of like in From Dusk Till Dawn. And this is Otis's just his most disgusting moment, just his most depraved moment. Bill Moseley just excels in his role here. And after this scene, he takes both husbands to drive them to this area where he apparently has guns hidden. They try to be calm, and Roy's like, "Please don't kill us. We did what you said." And he goes, and this is interesting because in House of a Thousand Corpses, the Otis character was always talking in this raspy, loud voice, spewing some bullshit rhetoric about, or philosophy, emulating Charles Manson. And for a lot of the film, we get to see Otis talk normal. Like, he's still the same character, but we see a little different side of the character, just the calm version. And here, he comes off as calm for a moment, saying, "Well, I didn't say anything. And second, I'm calling the shots here!" And he just sticks the gun in the guy's face and screams, "Consider me Willy Wonka, and this is my fucking chocolate factory!" And the two guys try to fight back, and for a moment they catch him by surprise. But this shows an example of people from the city and someone who fights and kills for a living. It's not that hard to figure out who's gonna come out on top. And Otis is able to sneak out a knife, stab the Adam character, and he injures them both to the point where they are definitely gonna die. And really showing what a badass, evil villain he is. Like, the Adam character just spits blood, yelling, "Fuck you," and Otis, almost making a point, says, "That's what they all say. Fuck you. Why? You think it makes you a hero? Well, you're gonna die, and it don't make you a fucking hero." And then he goes to Roy, who's lying there bleeding to death, and says, "I want you to pray. I want you to pray to your God that lightning will come down and strike me." And with his dying breath, barely getting out a word, prays, or says part of a prayer. He never really gets a chance to finish it, and showing that prayer's not gonna save him. And just, I see this as a good stab at that kind of mentality, that just praying something will help you, will get you out of something. And in a very cruel, mocking way, Otis goes, "Oh, I feel it! I feel it! Oh, I repent! I repent! Oh, the glory of God is in me!" And the way Roy looks at him on the ground, I can't tell if he's just seeing through the not convincing at all act, or if he's wondering for a second if it is real. And then Otis, glaring down at him, says, "I am the devil, and I am here to do the devil's work." And then he just bashes his head in with a huge, thick branch. Just, the whole film is so intense. You're on the edge, and it's interesting when you have a movie where the unsympathetic villains are the main characters, and you're not really sure how to feel. And going back a little, before the Fireflies burst into the family's hotel room, they're watching TV with looks like two preachers, or a preacher and a talk show host, talking about satanic cults and possibly talking about the events of the Firefly family, who at this point are being dubbed the Devil's Rejects. And Adam goes, "That's just a bunch of bullshit trying to get everybody all scared and worried, get them all up in arms." Like just a bunch of pointless bitching, and there's nothing really to worry about. He says, "It's all bullshit." 10 seconds later, the Fireflies come in. The worst kill that they do in the whole film is when the roadie character for the country singers comes in after going to get food, and he has had the least amount of interaction with the Fireflies. So when they bring him in, almost right away, Otis shoots him in the head, I guess just to make a point. To me, that was the kill that pissed me off the most, just killing this friendly guy. Like the others, like I said, they didn't deserve it, but we get to see a bit more annoying sides of them. And meanwhile, Captain Spaulding is on his way to the hotel when his truck breaks down, and letting opportunity knock, he sees a mother trying to get her kid into the car, and he just gets this great, creepy smile. And he goes out, and the mother is, this is a fun surprise, is a cameo, she's played in a cameo by P.J. Souls. And her kid is obviously freaked out by this clown, and he says, "I'm gonna need to take your car because I got some top secret clown business I need to get to." And she's like, "What's that about clown business?" And then he's like, "Do I stutter, bitch?" And then she tells her kid to get in the car, and he responds by knocking her just the fuck out. And then he gets in, and he looks at the kid, he's like, "What's the matter, boy? Don't you like clowns? Aren't we fucking funny? Don't we make you laugh?" And then he's like, "Now you listen here. You best come up with a reason why you don't like clowns, or I'm gonna kill your whole fucking family. Now get your ass out of the car!" And it is a rough scene for that kid, but the evil laugh Sid Haig gives is just brilliant. He meets up with Baby and Otis at the hotel, and Otis has skinned the face off of the character Adam, just going full Leatherface / Hannibal Lecter. And before they leave, he puts the skinned face on the wife, and they set up a whole brutal massacre piece of, I guess, killer art for the maid to find the next morning. And the wife, dressed in her husband's skin. It is really just grisly. You do not watch this movie if you are a pussy bitch wimp, because you will probably have a heart attack. Ugh, before you even make it to the 30-minute mark. And the wife goes running out and then gets run over by a semi. And Sheriff Wydell, examining the scene, realizes they aren't going to get that far. And an interesting thing that came into development was the names of the Firefly family. Otis Driftwood, Rufus Firefly, Captain Spaulding. They're all character names from Marx Brothers movies. And this shows that Rob Zombie is a true movie buff. Because, like, they realized all these character names, like, the Firefly family took them all from Groucho Marx's films. And in a fun, weird event for the cops, they get a movie critic to give them names of Groucho's characters. And the movie critic they bring in is this guy named Marty Walker, played by Robert Trebor. And this movie critic is just like a stereotypical loudmouth, always spewing movie trivia guy, and well, he is funny. I just look at this character and I sadly groan because I just think the way this guy is, like, he's telling them one thing and then he connects it, going Kevin Bacon route, just connecting all these other movies that really play no relevance to the case at hand. I just look at this character and I think, this is me when I was 14 or 15. Like, this really was what I was kind of like when I was, like, in my early teens, just always yapping off movie trivia, not really thinking about what the other person might want to hear. So it was funny, but also a little sad. And the deputies, played by Dave Sheridan and Chris Ellis, they're trying to figure out what the connection is with the movies. And Dave Sheridan, as Officer Dobson, goes, "Maybe we ought to track Groucho Marx down, see if he's involved." And Ellis's character, Cog, says, "Idiot, he died last year." Looks at the critic. "He died, right?" And the movie critic, becoming a complete bitch here, goes, "If you weren't a cop, I'd wring your neck." And then he just spouts how he's pissed that when Groucho Marx died, no one really noticed, saying that because Elvis Presley died 3 days earlier, no one cared. And when he starts talking shit on Elvis, Sheriff Wydell's like, and this is just another bit of random bit of fun, just playing for one scene, he goes, "What'd you say about the king?" And then he grabs the critic and says, "Son, you ever utter another derogatory word about Elvis Aaron Presley in my presence, I will kick the living shit out of you!" And then he just shoves him out and yells, "Get him out of here!" And as the guy's being let out, screaming that Elvis was in movies, Wydell's like, "Fuck Groucho!" Whew. Crazy. And after the scene with the maid discovering the murdered country singers, Wydell enlists the help of two bounty hunters who go by the nickname the Unholy 2 to track down the alias name, see if they can find anybody. And the bounty hunters are named Billy Ray Snapper, played by Dallas Page, and Rondo, played by the always awesome Danny Trejo. Danny Trejo in a Rob Zombie movie, that's just perfect. And upon looking at all the aliases taken from the Marx Brothers movies, Danny Trejo's like, "Hey, these are some funny-ass names." And Wydell's like, "Look who's talking, Rondo." The banter between Wydell and the Unholy 2 is legitimately fun to watch. And later in the film, Billy Ray says about the Firefly family, "They gonna feel like King Kong came down from Skull Island and raped him a new asshole." That's my favorite one-liner in the film. And after getting into a heated argument, Billy Ray's girlfriend comes out and says, "Yo mama's on the phone," and he goes, "Oh, she owes me $14. Hold it." And Danny Trejo, like, the Unholy 2 don't get a ton of scenes, but whenever they're in, they just, they steal the show, especially Danny Trejo, who's just naturally a fucking badass. And you can definitely see how these two are the people that can capture the Fireflies. And after all the grisly carnage and brutal killings we've seen from Captain Spaulding and Baby and Otis, we get a comedic scene, which is always a good thing to have in a extremely intense movie that is also supposed to be a fun ride, like a good comedy scene to take a slight breather. And for a lot of people, this is kind of where they become a little more open to watching the Fireflies as the main characters, because they are just really hard to watch at times, but this scene lightens things up a little bit, gives people a bit of a breather. It's where they're in the van heading to their safe place, and Otis is just determined to get to the safe house, and Captain Spaulding and Baby just nag Otis, saying they want to get some ice cream, and it is honestly fun banter, and this is really where you get to see that this family really is a family when you come down to it. I mean, they're fucking evil as fuck, but they are family. And Otis, just getting annoyed, goes, "There is no fucking ice cream in your fucking future." Next shot, we see them eating ice cream, and you can tell Otis, he's annoyed, but he's also kind of amused by the whole thing. The scene makes you forget for just 5 seconds just how awful they are, and it's honestly a little cute. That probably sounds weird, but it just is. And then they arrive at their safe house, which is a horror house run by this big, intimidating 1970s cool as slick pimp named Charlie Altamont, played by horror royalty Ken Foree. For anyone who sadly doesn't know, Ken Foree was the star of George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead, playing SWAT team zombie fighter Peter. He was also the dad, Roger Brockmore, on the Nickelodeon kid show Keenan and Kel. Interesting filmography. And for anyone wondering what the connection is between Charlie and Captain Spaulding and the Fireflies, well, and this is a little confusing for anybody who just goes into the film. Captain Spaulding and Charlie keep calling each other brothers, and apparently he sees Baby as his niece, and they keep calling each other brothers despite the fact that Spaulding is white and Charlie's black. And I read that even though it's never revealed in the film, Captain Spaulding was adopted by Charlie's family when he was a kid. So, as far as growing up and living together is concerned, they are brothers. Charlie's an interesting character. He's cool, tough, but funny, and he clearly does love Captain Spaulding and does see him as his family. And Sheriff Wydell, through the Unholy 2, is able to find the Fireflies at Charlie's place. And after a humorous scene about buying chickens from a guy who may be into bestiality, watch the film to find out, Wydell confronts Charlie and threatens to kill him unless he gives up Spaulding and the Fireflies. And you see that Charlie is conflicted because he does not want to give up his family, but he knows if he doesn't, he will die. And later in the film, while they're partying, getting high, having sex with the hookers in Charlie's brothel, the Unholy 2 come in, and another very well done scene set to a nice sounding song. The Fireflies are captured, and Wydell gets a cool confrontation scene with Captain Spaulding, who, after smoking a whole joint, says, "You best, if you're gonna start the killing, you best start right here." And then Wydell takes Spaulding, Baby, and Otis back to their family home, where he plans to deliver what he sees as true justice by torturing them for hours and then finally killing them to make them feel the pain of their victims. It feels both good to see the Fireflies get what they deserve, but it also really makes you see that the sheriff has sunk to a level just as low as theirs, and he is definitely not the good guy here. And he may be an anti-hero, but he's still bad. The final 20 minutes of The Devil's Rejects is pretty amazing. Like, you see all this torture and chaos going on, and I was surprised. I really found myself getting a little emotional with the finale. Like, the family could just die, but at the last minute, Tiny, the over 7 foot tall giant firefly kid from the first film, suddenly appears after going missing for the majority of the movie. And in a truly adrenaline rush scene where Sheriff Wydell chases Baby down, almost reenacting the way she chased down the character Mary in House of a Thousand Corpses, Tiny grabs Wydell and easily breaks his neck. And then he goes in and saves Otis and Spaulding, and like I said, this movie actually was able to give the killers a little bit of humanity, in the sense that we see the love they have for each other as a family. And these scenes at the end are so well directed that you feel a bit emotional when they reunite as the house is burning down after Wydell set it on fire. And I don't want to see the family get away, but I feel a little emotional when Baby and her dad reunite. And Otis, you see Otis at his most vulnerable here. And Tiny, who I guess sees the whole running thing as hopeless, goes back into the burning house and dies with it. And Rob Zombie, as far as the ending of The Devil's Rejects is concerned, Rob Zombie said at this point he did not want to do any more movies with these characters. He didn't want to do another sequel. So he decided to do the one thing to guarantee that there is not a sequel. he kills off all the family members. And the final scene of The Devil's Rejects is, in my opinion, just amazing, and is probably the best sequence Rob Zombie has ever made as a writer and director. Otis is driving Charlie's car, because Charlie, despite giving them up, came to the rescue earlier and got killed for trying, showing he did love them, and despite being put in a bad place, he did try to save them. But Otis, Baby, and Spaulding are in the convertible driving down the highway when suddenly they see the highway is blocked by all the deputies. And Otis, without any dialogue, you can see it in his eyes. He sees that it's hopeless, that they're not going to make it. So, the Fireflies, they decide to go out like badasses. They all get up in the convertible with their weapons loaded, and they go driving right at the deputies, knowing that they are going to die. And as this whole sequence plays out, we hear Free Bird by Leonard Skinner playing. Just incredible. This was the perfect way to end this fun, disturbing, grisly horror movie. And it's powerful in its final shots where the frame freezes on each member of the family at what I would assume is the moment they really officially die. And then the film ends with a in loving memory card showing for Matthew McRory, who played Tiny, who died before the movie came out. You would never expect this from Rob Zombie, such a powerful, intense ending. The Devil's Rejects is considered by many to be Rob Zombie's absolute masterpiece. Like, there are people that don't like it, and my best friend actually does not like The Devil's Rejects. He's one of the few that prefers House of a Thousand Corpses. But everybody, majority-wise, critics, audiences, me, The Devil's Rejects is seen as Rob Zombie's magnum opus. It's the most powerful and almost artistic movie he's ever made as a filmmaker. And I don't think I've said this at all since House of a Thousand Corpses, but I do not hold Rob Zombie in the highest regard as I did back when I reviewed House of a Thousand Corpses. I mean, I like his work. I love Devil's Rejects. It's still a great film, one of my favorite films of the past 15 years. But when I did my House of a Thousand Corpses review, I had never seen the Halloween remake that he made. And when I finally got around to seeing it after almost a decade of putting it off because I had heard nothing but bad things, I watched it, and thinking back to The Devil's Rejects after I finished his Halloween remake, all I could think was, what happened? I'm here to review Devil's Rejects. I'll get into the Halloween remake some other day, and I'll bring a shit ton of whiskey when I do. Despite those negative feelings, Devil's Rejects still remains Rob Zombie's best film, and in some ways it also hurts him because it was so great that everybody will hold any film he makes after that up to the standards of the Devil's Rejects, and he could make another great film of the same quality, but it's hard to say at this point. For anybody in the cast who I didn't go through when I was doing the plot, Sherry Moon Zombie as Baby Firefly. I said in my brief review of the Werewolf Women of the SS trailer that I don't think Sherry Moon Zombie's a great actress, and yeah, she really is not. She only acts in her husband's films. She said she has no interest in acting outside of her husband's work, and I think it's best that she stays in that mindset. I mean, she's not the worst actress I've ever seen, but she's not going to win any awards in my opinion. And for the roles he gives her, she does okay. She does alright. They're not that complex, and I've seen worse. But her performance as Baby Firefly she was a good killer in House of a Thousand Corpses, but here in The Devil's Rejects, I was really surprised by how well Sherry Moon Zombie did her acting here. Like, especially in the end, she has to give a lot of emotion. She has to really add some complexity to this character, and like Rob Zombie, this being his best film, this would definitely be Sherry Moon Zombie's best performance. And Karen Black did not return to play the character of Mother Firefly. She demanded a higher salary, which, considering how she was not really in much demand when House of a Thousand Corpses was made, I think that was a shit move on her part. So Rob Zombie instead cast Leslie Easterbrook, whom you might know from the Police Academy movies, due to her resemblance to Karen Black, and it's a little different. She's got cleaner teeth than Karen Black's portrayal, but she does a great job playing a evil, worn-out, sadistic whore, as she's called in the film, and she's a good crazy mother. And for a dream sequence, we get a return of Tom Towles as George Wydell, Sheriff Wydell's brother, who got killed in the first film, and it's not the best scene, but it is cool to have a little callback. And Charlie Altamont has a group of people for his brothel, mainly his hookers. His main hooker is played by Elizabeth Daly as a woman named Candy, and she has a great exchange with Otis where she asks if he's interested, and he says, "I set my standards pretty low, so I'm never disappointed." Smooth. And Charlie's right-hand man is a guy named Cleavon, played by another member of horror royalty, Michael Berryman. It was cool to see him. And a quick run through of the people behind the camera who deserve credit. Rob Zombie, next to writing and directing, also produced the film, along with people such as Mike Elliott, Andy Gold, Mario Melitz, Mehlitz, and a guy named Michael Ohoven, Ohoven, who was nominated for Best Picture for producing Capote with Philip Seymour Hoffman. And you're seeing me become the movie critic from The Devil's Rejects. The cinematography, which is one of the greatest parts of this film, is done by a guy named Phil Parmet. And the editing, which is miles improved from House of a Thousand Corpses, was done by Glenn Garland. And the production design, which is always a cool aspect to have, was done by Anton Tremblay. Tremblay. They really did a good job of recreating the 1970s look here. And that is it. Hope this review was somewhat entertaining to watch. I recommend House of a Thousand Corpses. It is a surprisingly incredible film, and if you're a horror junkie, you will love it. And if not, if you could handle a movie like, say, Oliver Stone's Natural Born Killers or Pulp Fiction, I think you could handle this. Rob Zombie's not for everybody, and his movies are a little hit and miss, but I kind of like his movies. I will never get over his Halloween remake, but I kind of like what he's trying to do it most of the time, and I think I've said everything I can say. See you next week.